Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce, joining you this Sunday evening with my good friend, Mr. Tyler Edmonds. Tyler, happy Sunday. Hope you had a great weekend, better than what at least the Cubs did in the win-loss column. But before we talk all good things baseball, how you doing, my friend?
Ron, it's good to get back on here with you, man. I'm good. Enjoyed this weekend. It was freaking hot as balls, like just
Oh yeah,
that kind of heat that just freaking drains you. But I tell you what helps is those brand franken no free ads, but those brand spanking new Busch Light limes. They really helped me out this weekend. But
they are good.
I could see you. I could see you were outside. I can tell you're working on your tan. You've got that wedding coming up in a few months. And so I could tell you were working on that this weekend. But I'm good, man. I'm good.
I was working on it a little bit. I was listening to the Cubbies poolside on Saturday, and yeah, there's the red that everybody can now see. My hat brim and my chest color are not too far off. We got a little bit of sun, but I agree with you. Those latte limes were going down like fat kids on a seesaw this weekend, and it felt like the first true weekend of summer, I think, in really the Midwest. I know you're saying down by you, down there in Glasgow, it was hotter than hell. It's hotter than hell up here. It was like 95 degrees every day this weekend. Thankfully, there was a wind, as we saw at Wrigley Field. Now, granted, whether or not it actually helped the people at Wrigley Field is obviously a different story. A lot of home runs hit, not necessarily all for the Cubs. But it was a beautiful spanking weekend to be, and that was true baseball at Wrigley in the middle of the summer. Everybody's been bitching and moaning about the wind to blow out, but when you get a team like Seattle who knows how to put the ball in the air, and Cal Raleigh, who might be the AL MVP at this point,
Dude is freaking Barry Bonds right now.
it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. Scott from Iowa was saying 100 plus and 45 mile per hour winds made for a wicked weekend in Iowa. Yeah, man, it's been a crazy, just hot streak right now over the course of the pretty much the middle part of the country. I think it's going to persist and continue into probably the middle of this week. I thought I saw, and then it's going to teeter back out to the mid 80s. I think what everybody is kind of expecting around this time of the year. But speaking of things that were hot, we already talked about Cal Raleigh's bat. The bats in general were very hot this weekend, Tyler. Obviously, the Cubs drop 2 out of 3 to the Seattle Mariners. As our tonight's episode is themed, it's a big dumper-sized disappointment. As everybody knows, big dumper refers to Cal Raleigh, who kind of led the charge here for the Seattle Mariners this weekend, a multi-homer performance in one of the games this weekend, among other things. But a 9-4 loss on Friday was a tough one to swallow. Not the greatest outings overall in that game. A really good outing, though, from Matthew Boyd. He only goes 5. He only gives up the 2 earned. But Presley giving up the 2 earned. Thielbar also giving up 2 earned. And then Genesis Cabrera, more or less kind of, dare I say, putting the exclamation point on his Cubs career, at least, was DFA'd Saturday after that, giving up 3. He had given up 7 earned runs in his last 3 outings, Tyler, over just 3 innings of work.
Yeah.
Looked really good beforehand, was carrying about a 3.20 ERA with the Cubs, or for the season, I think it was a 3.20 ERA. It was probably even better than that with the Cubs. And then those 3 outings, man, just kind of were the nails in the coffin for Genesis Cabrera as a Chicago Cub. Nate Pearson was called up. Are you sad to see a lefty leave the bullpen, or was it just felt like it was due time?
It was due. As well as this bullpen has been for the past few weeks, it sucks, but man, when you have 3 straight outings like that, it's not gonna go unnoticed. And Genesis Cabrera found out, and it's crazy because as soon as that inning happened, our buddy Steve, I'd seen him. We were at the gym. I'd seen him at the gym, and we were sitting there. He had the game up on his phone. And we were talking, and we were just saying, like, after that home run, we both looked at each other and was just like, "Yeah, I think this may be it for Cabrera." And not to jump ahead too far, but I think I'm kind of getting that same feeling with Nate Pearson as well. But yeah, Friday, man, Matt Boyd was great. I thought Matt Boyd did awesome. At first, I know everybody was yelling, even me. was just like, dude, he only threw 73 pitches, but I guess supposedly and they talked about it. I feel like at the end of the broadcast, I want to say they may have talked about it on Saturday. They talked about it on Saturday. The line drive that he actually caught, the ball that came back, hit him in the shoulder. I guess they're kind of being careful with that and cautious and stuff. But it just sucked because as well as he'd been, because that's the first thing I looked at. I looked at his pitch count, which was only 73. And I'm like, dude, he usually throws like 20 more pitches. I mean, he hovers around 90 to 100 range. And yeah, it's like as soon as he came out, just the wheels fell off. And like you talked about at the beginning of the show, it was like there was a freaking jet airplane behind. Have you ever seen Jackass the movie? That have the airplane, and they're just throwing shit up in the airplane and just zoom, zoom.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it was this weekend. And yeah, as soon as it's almost like as soon as Boyd came out, it just the wheels fell off.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because as you put, I mean, Boyd pitched a really good game, and just the 2 earned. His ERA is sparkling, a 2.84 now in the season. It rose a little bit, but nothing that I think anybody is alarmed by any stretch of imagination. It just goes to show too, Tyler, I think how important the starting rotation has been, especially in the absence of guys like Shota and guys like Justin Steele, where this bullpen is only typically, I say typically because obviously this weekend was a little bit of an anomaly, I think, in that sense, is typically only called upon for the final 3 innings of most games. Maybe 4 innings if, Cade Horton or Ben Brown only gets through 5. It's really tough when, a Matthew Boyd can't give you 6. And again, understandably so, they said there was some inflammation in the shoulder after he took the ball there. They were able to reduce the inflammation pretty much immediately. So I don't think it's anything to be long-term concerned about. Thank God, because otherwise the Cubs would be in a real pickle. Yeah. But it still sucks in the moment because that was at that point a very winnable ball game. And then you mentioned the wheels fall off, and obviously the Cubs go on to lose that one. But they were able to rebound on Saturday with some really, really encouraging stuff in that one. Obviously, a 10-7 win. Cade Horton wasn't perfect, but he did enough. 4 2/3. He was only credited with 3 earned runs against 6 total runs, though given up. A lot of those were because of obviously the ball's not being caught, a lot of missed throws, kind of some shaky defense, some of it due to the wind, some due to other factors in Saturday's game. Obviously, Pomeranz needs to, I believe, I forget who said it, but somebody, I believe it was Jesse Rogers, said Drew Pomeranz owes Brad Keller a steak dinner for keeping his perfect ERA intact.
Yes, he does.
For that Houdini job that Keller did with an inning and 2/3 of work. Theo Bar looked great as well. Daniel Palencia did give up the home run, but it ultimately didn't matter. He still comes away and able to finish the game. It was not a save situation at that point. And we got to see a lot of homers, obviously, in that game. Ian Happ had a pair of homers. Tucker had a homer. Bush had a homer. PCA hit his 21st. Really good day for our dinger picks. I think 5 of us registered points on Saturday, which was awesome.
I know I did. Not to brag, but I did
too.
Back-to-back days, by the way. Do not let me get hot.
Yes,
do not let me get hot, Ron.
You know who we can't let get hot is Juice. So as everybody
I know
has,
he's in last place, but it does not matter.
It does not matter.
He has that freaking magic, and once he gets on a roll, it doesn't stop, and he knows it, and everyone else knows it. So we got to avoid that. You're right.
He's on a roll too, because I'll tell you what, it's getting really, really funny because Juice has obviously had tough times depositing picks at points due to some traveling for different things and whatnot. But this week he's been real dialed in. And when Juice gets dialed in, it usually spells bad things for the rest of us, because he went from having 6 dinger points as of like Tuesday of this week. He's up to 10.
Yeah.
He had a hot weekend. He rode the Ian Happ train this weekend. And that ultimately,
like you said, the sad thing is I'd say in the past 2 weeks, he's probably missed at least 3 picks as well. Like hasn't had a pick.
Yeah. And the Juistradamus is in full effect when it comes to dinger picks, man. If nothing else in this world, it's it's something special. But I'll tell you what, man, despite, maybe not the cleanest game, they still come away with a victory. Those are certainly the ones that they need to get. A couple comments here as well, real quick. Darren says, getting hit hard by righties and lefties, having a 500 average against Cabrera in 2025, not good for the resume. And it's hard because the last 3 outings for Genesis Cabrera inflated every single one of his numbers. If you're just going and looking at the stat sheet, it doesn't tell the whole story. He was solid in his first, I think he had 9 total appearances for the Cubs. He was solid in his first 6 appearances. I think he gave up 2 earned runs in those 6 appearances. And I think 2 of them were in garbage time. So it really didn't matter. But then the last 3 outings, gave up an earned run in that third to last outing. In the penultimate outing, he gave up 3 earned, and then he gave up 3 earned in his last outing on Friday before ultimately getting the boot. And that's just the nature of the beast, man. Especially, and again, this I will say as maybe a positive to the Cabrera designation for assignment, Tyler. This is another one of those examples where if guys aren't performing, it's not like the last handful of years where they'll hold on to guys for too long. They're saying, hey, you're done, bud. We got another guy that can come up and replace you.
Yeah.
And it helps. It helps a lot, man. And it's tough. Because I agree, Darren. But just a lot of those numbers are inflated because of those last 3 outings, unfortunately, for Cabrera. So,
for sure.
And then Scott here asking, he says, please explain the Kelly ejection. It was the McGuire ejection if we're talking about Sunday. Reese McGuire was ejected in the 9th inning. I think he just barked and argued a call, and I bet you by the end of the day they were tired of the heat. And
for sure.
The ump just told them more or less to go kick rocks. So that's really all it was. I don't think there was really much else to it. I saw the highlight, and I think it was just a barking at each other and maybe some frustrations. He might have said a couple of words he probably shouldn't have said, and that's probably ultimately what got him paused.
For sure. But I'm sure he probably wished he would have said it a few innings sooner.
Yeah, get to the showers a little bit
just
earlier.
to get out of catching for the rest of the game. But
yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, Cade Horton wasn't bad this game. I know his stat line's not crazy, but I tell you what he did that Pat Hughes talked about, because I listened to most of the game today on the radio, and Pat Hughes had talked about this with Logan Gilbert. That is something that Cade Horton did as well. Cade avoided the drastic inning. On a day like
the big inning. Yeah.
The big inning. And on a day like Saturday, especially, that's what you have to do. Hell, we saw that play that PCA had, the ball he dropped that technically, I guess it was counted as a double, but that ball that it was a mixture between losing it in the sun, but also the wind. And then you can see the back, just the ivy freaking just going nuts. And days like that, it's like Pat Hughes talked about today. You've just got to do your best to avoid the big inning, and that's what Cade Horton did. And like we're saying here, his stat line again, it's not something like, oh my God, what an outing, but he did enough to keep his team in the game. And I'm gonna be honest, it did get a little scary there for a minute, because at one point, what was it? 9-1 at one point? I feel like.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, at one point it was 9-1, and then it just felt like they were slowly creeping back. And freaking, anytime Cal Raleigh got up, it's just like, no, let's not do this today. And by the way, I've got a bone to pick with our good friend Rachel. This is kind of on her, because at the beginning of all this, she was bragging about how she's got Cal on her fantasy team, and she hopes he hits 5 home runs. And obviously the Cubs win. But I hope you're happy, Rachel. You got your 5 home runs, or 4, whatever it was. So yay for your fantasy team. But yeah, got a bone to pick with her.
It's hard when your fantasy team's doing well, but the Cubs suffer as a result of it. I've been on that end of it numerous times over the years. It sucks. It really does, because it's great having a great player, but especially when you're Cal Raleigh and you just have the run that he had this weekend, it is just something else, man. Absolutely something else.
But Saturday was awesome. Saturday, it was great to see him pulling out against a good Mariners team. I know they're not in first in that division, but this is a team that is going to be in the playoff hunt at the end of the year. for sure.
1,000%. Their pitching staff is too good. They always are. They have, to me, probably one of the more talented groups of hitters that they've had in their recent memory. Obviously, Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh are kind of again, Cal Raleigh is taking a huge step forward this year in terms of offensive production. And we hear, we've heard it for years from Jed Hoyer at Cubs convention about, you can have a ton of great players on your team. You just need that one guy to have that season that exceeds expectation and everybody else does about what's expected. And you're just going to be a significantly better ball club than you would have been otherwise. It's kind of how the Mariners are right now with Cal Raleigh and his, again, because this is a guy that still put up big numbers in terms of slug, but didn't really hit for a high average, would take his walks, but only to an extent. Like, he was a slugger and a get on base guy and hit bombs. That's what he did as a catcher and play really good defense. Now he's kind of doing everything, and you see what happens.
And people forget. It's like we talked about in the pre-show. People forget this guy is a platinum glove winner.
Yeah, he's really.
You think of a catcher that's hitting bombs. You're like, okay, he hits bombs, so that's kind of like his way of making up for. Maybe he's an all right defender, but nothing crazy. But no, he just. And I'm pretty sure he just signed he just signed a new deal. Could you imagine had he not signed that new deal until after this season?
Good on Seattle to get that done when they did.
Very good on Seattle. But it's impressive to see what he's doing. I want to say he was the first player to have 30 home runs on June 22nd since Barry Bonds.
He was also the first ever switch hitter and catcher to have 30 homers before the end of June.
That's crazy. But
literally a historic season.
On that note, it just made me every time he came up, it just made me want to be like, I don't know, stop pitching to Cal Raleigh.
Just pitch around him. Just let him walk every time. Inflate his on-base percentage. It's totally fine. I concur with that. You were correct, by the way, just confirming your earlier note. It was 9-1 at one point in that game on Saturday when Seattle made a nice little run and made it interesting. PCA's 21st of the year was kind of the insurance run at the end that the Cubs kind of needed. And again, they got really good pitching kind of down the stretch there to finish that one off. But
real quick, one more just to reiterate it. The player of that game, and honestly, maybe even of the weekend, in my opinion, was Brad Keller. You talked about it as far as saving Pomeranz. Dude's hitting 100. Dude's hitting not that velocity is everything, but dude just and freaking strikes out Cal Raleigh. We're sitting here praising Cal Raleigh. Freaking strikes out Cal Raleigh on a 98-mile-an-hour fastball right down. I mean, it wasn't a mislocation because it just was one of those situations where he was not looking for that pitch.
Nope. And
I want to say in a full count, and just threw his nuts out on the table and was just like, here I am, come get me. And he just freaking just balled out 3 straight times that inning to save, one, to save Pomeranz's ERA, and 2, to arguably save the game.
Yeah, really. Very impressive stuff from Brad Keller. That was a ballsy pitch too, because like you said, especially to Cal Raleigh, especially in that situation. But Brad Keller just kind of said, all right, I'm going to give you a 98 down the dick, and I'm going to tell you to go hit it. And you got a nice little half swing strikeout from Raleigh because, like you said, he was not looking for it. He was looking for something off speed the whole way. And 98 snuck up on him down the middle. But sometimes you got to be a little ballsy to get out of situations like that. Brad Keller certainly did that. Again, another player that I appreciated, I think, from that game on Saturday. Darren has a comment on here. He says, Horton's demeanor in staying calm and getting through when he doesn't have his best stuff, it's really impressive for the young pitcher. It is. And again, this is a sub-4 ERA for a 23-year-old who has only thrown like 60, no more than like 80 to 90 minor league innings in a single season, is exceeding expectation. And quite frankly, given the injuries, I think even if we're going to get to it in a little bit, but I think Cade Horton's here to stay, and we'll expand on that topic here in a little bit. We do got to talk quickly about Sunday's game because this is probably what's going to kind of start what I'm alluding to about Cade Horton, and it's something that you and I kind of discussed. This is the most important topic coming up that the Cubs have to make a decision on, because as the news was reported, obviously Shota Imanaga went down on Friday through a rehab start, 4 innings. I don't think he gave up any hits. I think he walked like 1 or 2 and he struck out 4. And I remember quoting on late on Friday night the post and saying, "Yep, he's fine. Get his ass to St. Louis. We'll see him next week." Well, we're going to see him next week. They confirmed he's joining the team in St. Louis. We don't know if he's going to throw in the series. He may not, especially depending on whose start he potentially takes. If they skip somebody, I don't know how they're going to do it. A lot of decisions to be made for Craig Counsell here, but Sunday's game was not so good. Seiya Suzuki having 2 home runs, cool and tough. He and Pete Crow Armstrong
Picked him.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. He and Pete Crow Armstrong are the first 2 Cubs to have 20 home runs or more by, I believe it's the end of June. I'm confirming it here. Before the All-Star break, not even before the end of June. They're the first Cubs duo to have 20-plus home runs each before the All-Star break since 2016. Tyler, can you name me the 2 players that
that's got to be
reached that
Bryant and Rizzo, right?
Indeed it is.
Wow.
So they are the first set of teammates to do that in a Cubs uniform. So again, a really good day for Seiya Suzuki, personally speaking. But Colin Ray, 5 1/3. Good on him to give you at least 5 1/3 in this one and just not burn your bullpen. But 11 hits, 7 earned. He really didn't walk anybody, but giving up 4 home runs is not the recipe for success. Ray got shelled. Flexen came in and gave up his first runs as a Cub. He got shelled for 2 earned in 1 2/3 innings. He also got hit for a home run as well in that one. Now a 0.78 ERA for Chris Flexen. Talk about some good shit. But we also mentioned Nate Pearson being called up. He got used on Sunday, and he got abused on Sunday. 2 innings, 5 earned. They all came in that 1 inning, 2 walks, and 1 strikeout. He's got a, what do we call it, sparkling 12.66 ERA when it's all said and done. Still at Breezing said this a little bit earlier in the comments, made me giggle. I had to hold in my laughter. He says, when my wife asks me if the dishes are washed, my reply will be Nate Pearson.
That's a good one.
It is a good one.
That is a good one.
Tyler, thoughts on Sunday? And let's just open up the can of worms. What the hell did the Cubs do with Shota Imanaga when he comes back? Who's getting a booted from the starting rotation?
So minus the Seiya Suzuki multi-homer game, because that's really only that's about the only highlight you can talk about with this game. This outing with Colin Ray, and don't get me wrong, he's had his moments, he's had his starts and all that, but I feel like the Colin Ray experiment as an every 5th day starter in this rotation is run its course. I think not to say that he needs to go to AAA or anything like that, but once Imanaga comes back up, which it's looking like maybe Thursday, maybe. I think Colin Ray's your first guy out of that rotation. With that being said, that does not mean, though, Ben Brown, your seat's pretty hot too, buddy. Mm-hmm. Your seat's pretty sizzling. Luckily for you, well, one, actually, I say that tomorrow's start for you, Ben Brown, is that could be make or break too. Because let's say Ben Brown comes out tomorrow, throws you, gets you only 4 innings and throws up, 6 earned runs or something like that. Now we're talking, well, shit. Do we need to hang on to Colin Ray for a minute, or do we need to hang on to Ben Brown for a minute as far as rotation? But right now, if I had to choose one, I think it would be Colin Ray. But I think he would be that guy you throw in a ball. I tell you this, I think I would trust Colin Ray more in a long reliever role than I would Ben Brown right now. I don't know if that means I don't know if that's saying a whole lot, because I feel like earlier this year Ben Brown did that. He had like 5 innings where he did come in and do that. But I don't know. I see Ben Brown and it's like, man, I think out of anybody in that rotation right now, Ben Brown's the guy that could use a stint in the minors right now to figure things out. But yeah, I feel like Colin Ray's the guy, especially after watching and I know this weekend, yeah, the wind was blowing 100 miles an hour or 100 miles per hour out. But right now we're at a moment where it's like, what have you done for me lately? Mm-hmm. You've got about 3 full weeks till the All-Star break. Mm-hmm. So these 3 weeks, obviously you want to go into the All-Star break on a high note.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if I had to pick one or the other, I'm taking Colin Ray out right now. But again, that does not mean that Ben Brown is not on the hot seat as well. What it also means is Jed Hoyer, buddy, start picking up the phone because it is obvious, not only with the Ray experiment kind of going, running its course. This weekend was just another reminder that this rotation needs help. This rotation needs another arm, and not just any other arm. And like this rotation needs a solid arm. And I get it. You've got people like the Braves saying, "Oh, we're not trading Chris Sale," and you don't know what exactly you got with Sandy Alcantara that everybody's talking about. And then you've got all these other teams that you're just not sure, but you've got to find something. Do you pick up the phone and call Arizona? Maybe. I don't know, because like you've got to add something, because what you have right now, it's not gonna do it. You've got what? You've still got half the season left to go, and God forbid Shota Imanaga comes back. And somebody else in that rotation goes down, then what? Then we're in this same predicament. And
100%.
So yeah, this weekend was just a reminder that in my opinion, the Ray experiment, as far as being that fifth starter every fifth day, I'm not digging it right now. And yeah, they need to add something, and they need to do it now.
I agree wholeheartedly, and we're gonna kind of break this down, I think, piece by piece here, Tyler, because you had a lot of great things to say. For starters, following his start on May 18th, Colin Ray was carrying a 2.38 ERA and looked really, really good, and that was over about 8 starts over the course of I should say 8 appearances, 7 starts, 8 appearances over the course of the season. And then he had 2 really bad starts at the end of May. 6 earned in each of those starts, ballooned his ERA at that point up to a 3.96. And we all said, "Oh, it's okay." He kind of gets the opener role, usage on him, and he comes in and looks great in 5 1/3, lowers his ERA a little bit back down. But in his last 3 starts, 4 earned, 2 earned, 7 earned. So out of his last 5 starts, he's given up at least 4 earned in hold on, math is hard. In his last 6 starts, he's given up at least 4 in 4 of those 6.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I want to say 2 of those was what, back-to-back against Cincinnati, and they just destroyed them.
Yeah, Cincinnati is Colin Ray's Achilles heel of sorts
Yeah.
so far this season. But to kind of the point you made about Brown, I think Brown maybe gets a little bit of a longer leash just because of the stuff. I think he's got better stuff than Ray does in terms of long-term usage. And here's the thing about Ben Brown is, yes, he's had some really bad starts this year, right? We've seen the 6 earned. He's done that a couple times. He had a couple of bad starts in May where he gave up 6 and 8 and back-to-back. He had the 6 earned given up against him at Philadelphia where they really got to him. But his last time out against a really good Milwaukee team, he only gave up 2 earned. Back in that game against Detroit, he went 7 and dueled with Tarik Skubal and just got beat because Skubal shut down the Cubs lineup with ease.
Yeah.
I think right now, and again, this is just also my thoughts speaking here, because we got some interesting things in the comment section as well. I think Ben Brown does stay for the time being, but Ben Brown's seat is just as hot, if not hotter, than Colin Ray's, because right now I think Cade Horton is the guy that you sit here and go, even if once Imanaga comes back and even once they potentially add an arm at the deadline, I think Cade Horton stays.
I agree.
To me, Brown's the guy then at that point that goes to the bullpen and gets used and then maybe needs to, maybe get stretched back out if somebody gets hurt again or something of that nature. Now, Going to the comment section here, Darren saying maybe Imanaga could pitch the opener role for Ben Brown to start his return. I think they want Shota to be full gas because if you can get 7 out of Shota pretty much right off of Jump Street, or even if you get 6 out of Shota, that's going to really help the bullpen. Stolet saying here, Ray showing his inevitable regression now, but he still thinks Brown is the choice to go to the bullpen when Shota comes back. Ray goes back to the long man when the deadline starter is acquired. That's what he had to say. And then another righty hitting bench piece, need more than Seiya against lefty starters is something maybe for the deadline. And I'm sure they'll look to add a bat of some sort for the bench.
I'm just going to throw this out here, not to turn this into like who do we get right now and all this kind of stuff, but like two things that we're sitting here talking about a starter. I mentioned Arizona. What if they picked up the phone and they call Arizona?
Sure.
Hey, Mr. GM for Arizona, what would you say for a deal with, I don't know, Zach Gallen, who's not doing so hot right now, but he's also going to be a free agent next year.
Sure.
And we've got a rookie right now that's kind of struggling a little bit. What if you threw in Eugenio Suarez? What would a deal like that? What would that look? What would that take to get both of them over here?
That is interesting, Mr. Edmonds. That's a very good point, and that's the type of thing that would really make a lot of sense. Melon Smasher says here he wants to trade for twin starter Joe Ryan. Well, so do I. But that's
I love the thing. That's the only thing. Everybody looks at the AL Central, but it's like I get it. The Tigers are ahead of everybody right now.
Still a good division,
but they all feel like other minus the White Sox. Even though the White Sox are playing a little bit better, but I'm not going to give them any credit. All of them feel like they've got a shot at the playoffs. So, and
100%.
that's the problem with that Central division in the AL is, it's going to be hard to get rid of any of those guys.
Definitely. Stole it with a good point here. Gallen and Suarez being both rentals would be desirable for Ricketts from a dollars and cents standpoint. Certainly something to consider. Edwin Cabrera is a name that has come up in here besides Joe Ryan. Unfortunately, Ryan's not touchable. They're not trading Joe Ryan. The problem with Joe Ryan, and this is something that everybody's got to just keep in mind, when you got a young pitcher like Joe Ryan who's under team control, teams do not just get rid of those guys. And this is a respectable package, but I wouldn't trade Horton right now. I wouldn't trade Owen Casey. I would trade Owen Casey. I would trade Assad, and I would trade Hodge and Brown. I wouldn't trade Horton.
Did you see the package for somebody from the Athletic made a package for Sandy Alcantara from the Cubs, and it was
laughable.
I'm going to be honest, it was stupid.
Yeah. Well, yeah. See, this is tough.
But you're going to get a lot of that right now, anyways, because
nobody knows their ass from a hole in the ground. If we're being brutally honest, and I'm not even trying to call people out. I don't know my own ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to what guys are going to cost and what teams are going to need and things like that. The reason that Alcantara is such an interesting piece is because he does have the 2 years of control after this season. That's what's making teams more desirable. But you have to take into account his age. He is 29 years old. It's not like you're getting a 25 or a 26-year-old pitcher. He's making 17.3 for the next 2 years with a $21 million club option in 2027. So, I don't think he's going to cost as much as people think because that contract is not as friendly as, again, we all remember, right? Scott here, Paul Skeens or bust. We all remember the hypotheticals for what a Paul Skeens will cost you, but Paul Skeens is also making arbitration dollars and he's like 25. That's different. You're going to give up the house for a player like him. I like the Diamondbacks idea, Tyler. A couple other names that I certainly have on kind of the radar, because Alcantara has looked really good recently. He's quality starts in his last 4 outings.
His last 4? Okay.
Yeah, 4 for 4 in quality starts in his last 4 out. I think that's a really good one. I like this one from Melon Smasher. Kevin Gausman is certainly an interesting name, depending on where the Blue Jays go.
That's the thing. I like Gausman, and I even like Barrios, but they're playing pretty good right now to the point where they feel like they've got a shot.
And that's why it's, again, the speculation piece of this gets tough when nobody outside of maybe 5 or 6 teams are truly sellers at this point.
Yeah.
Because I look at that, again, we're trying to take things away from Toronto's a wild card team right now. They're going to be looking to add rather than subtract.
Yeah.
They are playing really good ball. And that's even with going 4-6 in their last 10. They're still a game and a half up on the final wild card spot, which is currently occupied by both Cleveland and Seattle as things stand at this very moment while we record. Boston's only a half a game out. Kansas City and Texas are only 2 games out. Hell, even the Los Angeles Angels are only 2.5 games out.
Yes, the Angels are surprisingly playing well, and nobody's talking about it. Yeah.
And nobody is talking about. I mean, really, you look at the AL right now, and the only teams I would say are probably open for business right now are maybe the Athletics and the White Sox, and that's about it. There's really everybody else is kind of in it. Really, you have to look at the NL, in my opinion, because even the Arizona Diamondbacks are only 3.5 out of the wild card right now. Obviously, that can change a lot by the deadline, but that's the tough part when trying to talk about this on June 22nd. We have over a month until the deadline. A lot of things can happen in a month of baseball. Now, if we're talking teams that I think are immediate sellers, Tyler, obviously the Miami Marlins are included in that. So Cabrera, Alcantara are certainly names that could be a piece of that. Colorado doesn't really have anybody that intrigues me a ton, although Colorado is the type of team that has a couple of okay starters where if you wanted to go out and get a guy for 2 kind of lower level prospects just for depth, I don't think that's the worst move in the world. You know who I'm really intrigued by? And it feels to me like the type of move that the Cubs would ironically be okay making.
Mm-hmm.
It would cost a little bit because he's very much under team control. He's got 3 more years after this one under contract. Actually, in fact, it might be 4 years under contract for this one. Let me confirm with my own checking here that I've been doing, but it's at least 3 more years, I believe, after this season. So
AL or NL?
Oh, it's NL, baby. It's NL. And again, there might be a little bit of that in-division tax. But what about Mitch Keller from the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Yeah, that'd be.
I mean, he's making $15 million this year. He's 29 years old. He makes 16, just short of 17 million next year, a little bit over 18 the year after that, and about $20 million in 2028. This is a guy who's second in the National League in quality starts, but because the Pirates are total fucking dog shit, is 1-10 as a record.
I was about to say, I bet you he doesn't have any wins. I thought you were going to tell me.
He has 1. I think he has 1 singular win, maybe 2. He's got double-digit losses already.
It would be a Pittsburgh thing to do to get that contract off of their payroll. Yeah.
Bingo. And if you're the Cubs, who very much have damn near, ready players, right? Guys that are 100% ready to make the jump to the major leagues, Moises Ballesteros, Owen Casey, and maybe you got guys for a little bit further down the road if they want some of that too. Maybe you have to throw in a James Triantos or a Jefferson Rojas, but you get a guy for 3 more years after this one, and he's in his pitching prime.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
And look what starting pitchers are going for on the active market. Mitch Keller at below $20 million for each of the next 3 years.
That's
good business. Yeah, that's good business. And it's kind of like you said, it's kind of the thing that it works for everybody. The Pirates get out from that money because they don't like having big term contracts on their books. They never have, and they never will. He gives flexibility from a payroll perspective. If you're the Cubs, I mean, he's making Jameson Taillon level money, and I would make maybe the argument that he's maybe a little bit of a better pitcher.
Yeah. I think you could. Yeah.
He had a rough year. He had a rough year last year. He's been consistently like a 4-ish ERA guy, but man, I mean, he's like, this guy's 1-10. But he has,
and I know he doesn't
quality starts.
I was gonna say, I know he doesn't probably have. I don't think he was on that playoff team, in 6 or whenever it was. But
no, he was not.
I'm pretty sure he was on. He's pitched on the big stage before because he pitched for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic, and I get it. But I mean, as far as that big stage feeling, I mean, he's been there and done that, so at least there's that. But I like Stolet Bruising's idea too, throwing IKF.
Yeah,
because that dude, I feel like that dude can play anywhere. I want to say he caught. I think he caught a little bit for the Yankees.
He did.
And then now plays shortstop.
Fantasy baseball cheat code when he was catching them. fantasy
I would
baseball
not
cheat
would
code.
not hate that. Would not hate that deal.
He's also the type of player that I think Jed Hoyer absolutely loves because of his versatility. And
Yeah,
Craig Counsell, I think, would love
you
him
could
too.
play him anywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. And again, if your glaring hole is third base and you just need the guy that's a reliable glove and gives you a little bit of offense, that's something you can probably make happen. Melon Smasher here says Tyler Molly. Unfortunately, he's on the IL right now, so you don't know how healthy he's going to be. Plus, again, Texas competitive. That AL
Yeah, I was gonna
wide
say,
open right now.
Yeah, I don't see Texas getting rid of anybody right now unless
It's
they
going to
just
be
have a crazy fallout.
yeah, it's going to be hard because again, if Jed's trying to make a move, hypothetically speaking, let's say between now and the 4th of July, it's hard because there's only so many teams that are really out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's a month of baseball. That's the tough part before the deadline. You have a full month of baseball.
And then you still have teams like I know we've got guys sitting here, and I was one of them earlier this year talking about, naming off Braves players. The Braves, like you could sit here and look at their standing right now, and technically anybody would, they're 11 games out. But the Braves, I just feel like that organization in their heads probably feel like, yeah, we still have a chance. And even if they don't, they're still going to bring back all those players next year. And I just feel like they're going to say, well, this year was a mulligan because we lost.
Yeah.
We didn't have Spencer Strider at the beginning of the year. We didn't have Acuna at the beginning of the year. And they're almost kind of use it as well, this is why we were like that. So you've got teams like that either A, still think they're in it, or B, like, we're not going to break up too much because we're going to run it back next year. We'll be all right because we've done it before and we'll do it again.
100%. And
so it's tough. It's tough to figure it out.
Yeah, it really is. And Melon Smasher, I hear you.
That would be awesome.
Austin Riley would be great, but Austin Riley's under contract for, let me do my math here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with a club option for an 8th year.
That's not going.
He's not. Teams don't trade multi-year contracts like that. Not especially for a 20-year-old third baseman like Austin Riley.
It'd be nice though. It would be nice.
Sure.
Smasher. It would be.
It would be great. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. And again, that's the tough thing because you have the Braves coming out and saying they're not going to trade Chris Sale. Which, if that's the case, to your point, right? They're just kind of saying this is a mulligan year. We're not going to strip it down. We're not going to tool it up. We're just going to kind of coast and come back at it again next year.
And who knows? Maybe they're also doing it to be like they're dangling them out there, like we're not trading this guy, and then that's going to make everyone be like,
sure,
I want him more now.
Yeah, it could be. It's kind of the human nature thing of you want something you can't have.
Yeah,
and maybe that's exactly, what you can do there. It's going to be tough to see. Solid asks here, he says, what would you trade for what's left of Royce Lewis from the Twins? Another great player, but again, you're going to give up a lot because he's young and he's controllable.
Right now, I want to say at one point he was 1 for his last nearly 30. And there were some Twins people on Twitter talking about how they would not have been surprised if he gets called back down sometime this year.
Yeah.
And it sucks because I want to see that guy like just ball out because that little stretch that, not to turn this into Twins talk, but that little stretch he had, I feel like 2 years ago, was like, man, you pair him up with Byron Buxton, it'd just be nasty. But I don't see them trading him either.
No, man, it's tough. Again, everybody's still mathematically in it outside of a handful of teams. And when you have that scenario, unless teams internally are making the decision that they are officially out of it, it's not going to happen. And yeah, I mean, you got Royce Lewis, who's 26. He's ARB 2, ARB 3, ARB 4 for the next few years. He's making 1.6 mil. That's so desirable. Yeah. And even if he is struggling, and again, if he's struggling, is he really going to be able to come up and help you right now? I think that's something that people need to consider as well. Again, I think it's going to be difficult. I really don't think anybody is going to make any significant trades in baseball, not even just the Cubs, probably until like this time next month, like the 22nd. It'll be a crazy 8 days leading up to the deadline, but that's all I think is when we're going to see stuff. Because right now, again, you've got 6 teams collectively between both divisions or both leagues that are, you could argue, are out of it at this point.
Yep.
And a lot
we may have already seen the biggest trade of the year with Devers.
Yeah, you're
You know
right.
what I mean?
You're
It may be
100%
one
right.
of those things where maybe you get moves, and you're going to get moves here and there by the deadline, but like it may be one of those years where we don't get that big deal that we're all talking
That big
about. You know,
fish.
just I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, man. It'll be interesting to see. Scott has a question. He says, "Any thought on trading for an offensive third baseman?" He follows that up, saying, "I like Shaw. I don't want to give up on him, but also would like another thumper in the lineup." I mean, I think we'd all like another thumper in the lineup.
That's
But
where you go back to Suarez from the Diamondbacks.
yeah,
I would
especially
love
for
that.
one season,
Mainly so he would stop hitting bombs against us.
he could hit bombs
That would
for,
be nice.
and then it'd be
Yeah, he can hit
awesome.
bombs for us.
I agree.
Other
I
than
don't hate that trade.
mean, maybe Arenado, but I don't see the Cubs and the Cardinals making a deal like that. I really don't. Yeah, I don't know.
I think the question truly becomes with those type of moves. It really is going to come down to how all in are the Cubs going
Yeah.
this year, right? Like,
Sure.
are you selling out and trying to win the whole thing because you're not sure that you're keeping Kyle Tucker? Just he might want to
Oh,
go
yeah.
somewhere else. You know, are you fully uncertain? You're saying we're going to go give it a run in 25 and see what happens, and we've got PCA and we've got some other good pieces, and we'll retool and we'll come back at it next year, or are you kind of playing the long game? Like, oh yeah, we'll have Kyle Tucker here for a while. Maybe we just go at a piece here, piece there, and see what this team can do this year, and then with Steele back healthy next year, and maybe you make a key free agent pitching signing, or maybe you get somebody at this year's deadline who's under contract for a few years, and then maybe you can maybe that's what it takes. Who knows? So much is going to happen. This is why I almost hate baseball sometimes, Tyler, because it is you have to play the long game. So much is going to happen between now and this time next month in the MLB standings. I bet you if you go and take a snapshot right now today, I challenge every Cubs fan listening to the show to do that, and then come back and July 22nd do it again. The standings are probably going to look completely different. That's just the nature of baseball.
I'd even give it less time than that, Ron. I'd give it 2 weeks, just up to the All-Star break, and I feel like things may be, things could be drastically different.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree, and I completely agree with this. Goals to win the World Series. Tucker 3 World Series appearances in 7 seasons.
I think like just to reiterate what you were saying earlier. I think we're going to get our answer as far as what this ownership and front office is, as far as in their head, what their goal is based off what moves they do and don't make within this next month.
Definitely. I think we're going to learn a lot about the Chicago Cubs for now and for the future between now and the trade deadline. Genuinely. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put my Ron Stradamus hat on again because I absolutely fucking nailed it. Because Thursday night, I don't remember. I think it was Wednesday night. We recorded 4 feathers because it's a big week for the National Hockey League. The draft is this Friday coming up now, first round. The rest of the draft's on Saturday, July 1st, free agency opens. It's a big 14 days for the NHL. I said on Wednesday night show that the Blackhawks were going to make a trade. I didn't know what magnitude, but they were going to make a deal before the first round of the NHL draft. Saturday morning, trade happens. Ron Stradamus is right again. So I'm going to put my cap on again. I'm going to put it on again. When I say we are going to learn everything we need to know about how this team is operating with the potential strike a year plus down the road and the complete lockout of, and maybe not even having baseball in 2027, you're going to very quickly learn how Tom Ricketts wants to approach that financially. And we're going to learn how Jed Hoyer's treating it in terms of the roster construction. Are they going balls to the walls for 2 years, knowing that we might not have baseball? And then you got to kind of figure it out after that, because there might be a salary cap. There might be some other crazy shit that forces teams to shed payroll or do something else, right? We don't know what the world of baseball looks like after the new CBA. We don't. Yeah. We just genuinely don't. We're going to learn everything, not just some things, everything I think we need to know about this Cubs team for the next year plus in the next month and a half.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. We're going to learn a
I
lot.
like it.
We're going to learn a ton and have to figure it out. Still, it says here, remember when Bellinger was traded to free up money for another pitcher? Still waiting on that pitcher. I think we're going to see him at the deadline. I think that's what they were kind of waiting for. I also didn't think they expected Justin Steele to get hurt, and that happened. So, I mean, they did sign Colin Ray to like a $7 million deal. So you could make the argument that some of the money went there, but I'm not going to stir shit that doesn't need to be stirred up right now. Tyler, incredible stuff, incredible conversation. We do have a 4-game series on the horizon we do need to talk about here. So I'm going to give you the floor once again, my friend. Any final thoughts about the Seattle series, about the starting rotation construction, how you're feeling about everything else? Anything other than that?
I just, this series sucked. It was a nice weekend, but it sucked. And yeah, it was just a reminder that this team needs help. This team needs help when it comes to the starting rotation. The bullpen wasn't as shut down as it normally is. I'm not panicking about that yet. I get it. Your bullpen's going to have as much as this bullpen was just locked down, shut down, unhittable as it was for like two straight weeks. As we both know, it's such a roller coaster when it comes to bullpen pitchers. 100%. And so it was bound to happen, but I'm not panicking about the bullpen just yet. Other than that, just before we get into the Cardinal series, and you said Cardinal series, and it just always reminds me of this one pitcher, former Cub Kyle Hendricks. Cardinals fans know him because he's shoved it up their asses numerous times. Big shout out to former Cub pitcher Kyle Hendricks. Last week, throws a freaking 6-inning shut piece against the Yankees, 9 strikeouts. Well done, sir. And also shout out to Ian Happ. Just hit his, I want to say that was his 151st home run on Saturday, passes Chris Bryant. Yes. So that's pretty cool, pretty awesome to have 150 plus home runs in the big leagues. So well done, sir.
Indeed. Yeah. Talk about a hell of a name to pass too. Chris Bryant. Obviously, Chris Bryant only played 6 years with the team. You can make the argument right now that Ian Happ's in his 8th year as a Cub, neither here nor there. That's still a hell of a mark. And not all of those are full years of service time either, mind you, right? We saw Happ go up and down in those early years before he really became a true mainstay with the team circa 2021, especially toward the end of that season, when he really went on a hot streak. Still, it says here, LL school was in session for the professor against the Yankees. Tyler, my final thought on this series is, the wind giveth and the wind taketh away.
Yeah.
It helps everybody when you're hitting at Wrigley, right? And that you're going to be on the bad end of some of them sometimes. And that's exactly what happened this weekend with 2 of those games. It is what it is. Seattle's a good ball club. You're going to lose series. It's not, it's inevitable, right? Like you're going to lose series, but having won that series against Pittsburgh, you split with Milwaukee, which sucks because, of course, of the rain delay or rain out, I should say, pardon me, on Wednesday night. You've got a hell of an opportunity now for more division wins against a rival coming up, and that should just be their focus. And you're hitting in Busch Stadium. I feel like the Cubs like to hit in Busch Stadium. So, which speaking of that, 4 games on the horizon this week with the St. Louis Cardinals. After that, over the weekend, the Cubs will travel to Houston before an off day and returning to Wrigley for 6 straight during the 4th of July week. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we'll focus back in on this Cardinal series. 3 of these games are 6:45 Central Time starts. That would be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Because Thursday is getaway day for the Cubs, it is a 1:15 start in the Central Time Zone. On Monday, your pitching matchup is, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, will feature Ben Brown for the Cubs, Matthew Liberatore, who is the piece acquired by the Cardinals in the trade with the Rays for a guy we just saw this weekend, Randy Arozarena. So a little bit of a full circle moment there. He will take the bump for the Cardinals. He's pitching pretty well this year. I've got him on a couple fantasy teams. He's been decent. Not as good recently, but decent. And then we do have Jameson Taillon as the probable listed for Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday are still TBD, which obviously will certainly be on watch because Imanaga can be a part of that conversation. Will Colin Ray remain? Will Ben, obviously Cade Horton remain? I mean, that could be the biggest shock of all as Cade Horton goes back to Iowa and Shota takes his place in the rotation. Not saying it's going to happen, but you never know. Or if Matthew Boyd is in fact hurt, somebody might have to fill in. So there's a lot of what ifs, but we at least know what the first 2 games are going to be. There will be a show on Tuesday night in some capacity from the Cubs on Tap crew. So they'll talk about these 2 starts from Taillon and Brown. Tyler, what do the Cubs need to do in Big Mac land down there in the armpit of America to get a series win?
Well, for starters, Ben Brown has got to kick this series off on a high note. Like we said earlier, this is a huge start for him. Man, Ron, I need him. I need to see him pitching in the 6th inning. With, they're playing every day this week. So you do not want to start this week off taxing your bullpen on Monday to just kick things off, especially after your last 3 games, you used at least 3 arms in each game as far as out of the bullpen, I feel like.
Yeah, Sunday they used 2, but that was just because they kind of waved the white flag at the end of it.
But yeah, so you need at least 6 innings from Ben Brown in this start. With that being said, though, this has got to be a statement series. This cannot be anything else but we're putting our foot on your throat and letting you guys know who the daddy is of this division. We can't give you any false hope or anything like that. This has got to be a statement series, and it starts on Monday with Ben Brown.
1,000%. 1,000%. The division standings are not as cushy as they were before this weekend. Cubs obviously at one point with a 6.5 game lead on the Brewers. They shrunk that down to 5.5 with Thursday's win. That is now since down to 3.5 for the Brewers, trailing the Cubs. St. Louis only 4.5 back. Cincinnati 6.5 back. We all know the Pirates are almost dead and gone effectively in the standings at this point. They're 16 games out from the Cubs, but it's still anybody's division. And I agree with you. A statement is needed to be made. I need a great outing out of Taillon, a great outing out of Ben Brown. I hope we get to see Matthew Boyd pitch on Wednesday and he gets another great outing in his potential all-star bid, which I think would be awesome to see. And maybe, just maybe, we get Shota Imanaga returning on Thursday, which, could be for a series win. You would love to see him come back, be strong, and throw a good game and just shove it down the Cardinals' throats. For a little bit of FTC, or as Nick likes to say, a little FTFC action with he calls them the Fugazi Cardinals. Darren says you need to teach Ben Brown to pitch, third pitch like now, Tyler.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be the guy to do it, but he needs a third pitch bad. For sure.
Indeed. And I agree with Still at Breezing here. And I think this kind of goes back to a little bit of what I was saying with kind of that quote unquote small ball. I was talking with Nick about this a little bit on Tuesday's show. The Cubs just need to get back to being able to hit with guys on base. Doesn't need to be home runs all the time. Singles and doubles, baby. Let's get some guys in. I completely agree with that sentiment as well. There were a few other final thoughts from some of the commenters that I ignorantly skipped that I meant to show. So I'm going to go back to those here really quick, Tyler. One of those coming from Darren. He says he still has total faith in Shaw's future, but Isaac Paredes, 256, 16 homers, 45 ribbies, 979 fielding percentage hurts a bit right now. And this was one of those classic cases where I said it and nobody believed me because I follow the Rays at a nauseating clip compared to most Chicagoans. Isaac Paredes is a really good baseball player. I think we all knew that. There's a reason the Cubs gave up Christopher Morel to go get him. It just didn't work out. And you also had the opportunity to go get Kyle Tucker. Like, let's not forget that either.
Yeah.
You were going to have to give up more than just Cam Smith and Hayden Wesneski to get Kyle Tucker away from the Houston Astros. And that's what it took. It took Isaac Paredes. He's perfect for the Crawford boxes in Houston. You've seen it where he's hit some really kind of, I don't want to call them cheap home runs, but home runs that in April and May at Wrigley would not have been homers. They would have been just long flyouts, or as I like to call them, loud outs. He's playing really good defense at third. Maybe that's the part that hurts the most just because of the inconsistency defensively.
Yeah.
But overall, I think, I think everything is going to be just fine. And then Stole it breezing with a little crossover action here. He says Hawks are trading for an NHL experienced forward to help Bedard, and the Hawks will trade picks and prospects to do so. I like it. It's spicy. I'm all for it. Which, speaking of, shameless plug, the Four Feathers podcast will run, I believe, on Tuesday night. So there's either going to be Ron Luce double dipping or a couple of different faces on this program with Ron Luce scooting over to the red and black over at Four Feathers Pod. Tyler, as always, before we get out of here, I want to remind everybody that Cubs on Tap is one of two official shows covering the Chicago Cubs here. Give the love to our friends over at the Dingers podcast, running on Monday nights when they do run shows. You can find those here at the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit the little bell button. You'll know when they go live. You'll know when we go live. You'll know when all of our other great shows go live here at On Tap Sportsnet. Be sure to follow us at Cubbies on Tap on the socials. Tyler and I have our handles here in our descriptions on the live show. But if you are listening on podcast, or if you're going to listen on podcast, even joining us live, you can check out all the other handles of our contributors over there. That's always in the descriptions as well. Of course, we've got it all. Blackhawks, Bulls, big things coming up for those two teams. The NBA draft is also this coming week. So a couple of new talents will be influxed into the Chicago Bulls organization, as will the Chicago Blackhawks organization. So be sure to look out for those two shows. And of course, the Bears. We're just kind of waiting around at this point for training camp at the end of July before preseason action kicks up in August. And Tyler, you got friends that like the South Siders. So do we. So, send your friends, our friends. They can all be friends and talk about the miserable White Sox who are playing better ball. Still
if you're gonna root for him, if you're gonna root for them, this is the best place to listen to people talk about them.
Absolutely,
give them that.
Give them the love over at Sox
It's
on
the best
Tap.
place.
So once again, ontapsportsnet.com and at OnTap Sportsnet on the socials, the OnTap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Tyler, always a pleasure, my friend, to talk baseball with you. A good full hour for our listeners here to start the weekend. If you haven't already, it will be posted as of Sunday evening in podcast form, but it is available on the YouTube. If you want to talk Cubs on Tap after dark, we got a real Cubs on Tap after dark. Joey and Nick ran at like 12:30 in the morning Friday night into Saturday, and I think finished at about 2:30 in the morning. Surely a banger of a show. I am going to go back and listen to it myself as well. It's going to get me through my Monday morning, most likely. So encourage everybody else to do so as well. That was our most recent show. Thursday, because of some scheduling and obviously the Milwaukee series being what it was, got pushed back to a Friday show. But the boys were live, and it was a bender. Tyler, what do you say, my friend? We get out of here the only way we know how, especially with the team on the schedule this week.
Ron and St. Louis fans and Chip Carey. If you thought that if you thought we were gonna get through this episode without talking about you, buddy, all I gotta say is you had one job. You had one job, Chip. Read the damn script. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up.
Boy.
That's most of your fan base right there, that who you was talking to in that moment, and you screwed it up. You screwed it up, Chip. So St. Louis fans, you ding dongs, you're more than welcome to flip over the broadcast tomorrow. You don't have to listen to your own. Listen to Marquee. It's all right. And that's just another reason, Ron. That's just another reason on the list of so many reasons why I can proudly say, F the Cardinals.
Hell yeah, baby. And let's go, Cubbies.